This is a door installation or removal dolly, and it includes 4x screws, 4x caster wheels, and dummy text only. So I was sent this to review for free. If you wanted to purchase it, it would cost you about $60. They haven't paid me for a review, and my opinion remains my own. Alright, in the box we have 2 of these dollies separated by foam and bubble wrap. They're heavy steel and they're wrapped in bubble wrap mostly to keep them from poking through the cardboard of the box. And 3 of the 4 caster wheels have baggies around them. I'm not sure why the 4th doesn't. And it looks like you just kind of rip them off. So the idea is you take this guy, you slide it under your door, and you clamp it to your door using these little guys here that have foam on them to protect the door. And then you lift it slightly to support the weight of the door, and then you unscrew the door. And when you're done with it, you can just roll the door around with one person. So it's not easy to put a door on with one person. It's possible to take it off with one person, but the idea here is that you can take a door off and on with one person and these specialized tools. So there's no instructions that come with these other than installation should always be carried out by a properly trained professional. Always follow instructions carefully. So I guess we're just going to figure it out on our own. It seems like it's pretty obvious how to use them. Alright, first bit of advice, put the inside one on first because the one closer to the doorknob has to go on second. Second bit of advice, there's a short side and a long side, and I think it's probably better to put the short side on the other side of the door so that it can open wider. But that may depend on your situation. Also, it's easier to turn this guy when it's not on the floor, so I set it to almost the width of the door before I put it down under the door. Alright, if I were doing this again, I would make this guy have the long end here, but it works, and the door rolls around on the hinges and these dollies, and I have tightened up the screws here, so hopefully most of the weight is being taken up by the dollies. Now, my door is relatively tall off the floor there, and I didn't have a lot of excess room to move those up. So if your door is super high, you may need to put a piece of plywood or something underneath it for this to work well. Or you could probably put some spacers on the dolly kind of between the door and the bottom of the dolly, because the clamps are a little higher up. So maximum height here is about 1 1/4 inches. So if your door is swinging more than an inch above the ground, you may need to put some shims under here or a piece of plywood or something on the floor so that you can lift it up high enough. It looks like any door up to about 2 1/4 inches thick would work with this guy. So if I'd oriented the first dolly appropriately, this door would open more, and I wouldn't have any problems with these screws. As it is, I had to get my 6-inch bit to be able to fit in there. Alright, bottom screws out. Would be 1 flathead screw in this hinge. Alright, took a little hammering on the hinges to get the paint off. But yeah, that door just moves around. I can dolly it around all I want. Now the real question is installation. Can we put it back in place? So the dollies are at the kind of maximum extent of their height, and the hinge here is actually maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe an 1/8 inch lower than it should be, but because it's an interior door, hollow core, it's pretty easy for me to just push it in there, And a lot of the weight is still resting on the dollies here, so I can very easily get a screw in. Let's move down to the bottom hinge. I already have the upper hinge in. The lower hinge here fits right back in there. Knocking a little paint off, but that's how that happens. And, you know, the dollies are holding the door up. I have both hands free. Just put a little screw right in here. Yeah, that is slick. I like those. Yeah, those dollies work slick. I took that door off, rolled it around, put it right back on. Obviously, if you have two guys, it's faster with just somebody holding the door. But if you only have one person, you'll pay for those dollies pretty quick by not having to hire a second person. Yeah, the only thing you really need to know here is put the long end away from the wall. So put the short end on the hinge side so that you can open this door almost fully. Yeah, I like these guys. It's kind of a single-use product. You know, if you put up a lot of doors or take down a lot of doors, it's definitely worth having. I could potentially see using it if you clamped it to the end of a really long board to make a board easy to roll around, or, you know, you could clamp it to some plywood or something and use it to move a piece of plywood around. So it could be used for things besides doors, but I think it's really designed, you know, for installing doors, and that's the key place where this is going to be really helpful.